Luis, God bless you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. I got introduced to your program, the Breaking Chains program, from somebody at St. Luke's, and I'm very, very happy I did. I get really concerned about our youth, right? Like I came from, man, my high school. People don't know this. I grew up in this place called Concord, Northern California. I went to a high school there. It was actually one of the worst ranked high schools in the state of California. Worse than Compton high schools, worse than like a lot of LA Unified. We had like a 60% Hispanic American population. I'm Hispanic American, so I contributed, but it's like a lot of them were first generation, English second language speakers, and just people moving in, and parents were working their asses off, trying to make a living and just didn't have time for, take care of the kids. That leads to exactly what you'd imagine. Concord's only, I think like 6 miles away from Oakland. We had a lot of activity, right? It was a big thing. And I watched several of my friends go from, elementary school, everybody's kind of got potential, no big deal. Some kids I like, some kids I don't like, but I watched some that really were close to realizing potential, either in the end of junior high or in high school, that you could just see the light get darker and darker. And then by the end of high school, it's like, oh my God, man, like, I don't know what that guy's into, but like, it's no good. Right. And that is terrible. One friend in particular, dear friend of mine, Juan, I hung out with this guy all the time. Like I would sleep over at his house on school nights. Like we were dear friends. We'd do homework and stuff. And his family kind of went through a lot of things, and he ended up, not graduating with our class. Now he's since gotten his life together, and it was incredible to see the turnaround, because Juan was like dynamite smart, way smarter than me. He just went through some stuff personally that was not his fault, that led him, down a bad path for a period of time. Now I'm sure he makes like 3 times the money I do and like kicks ass. But, it's that kind of capacity that he had. And I know that exists with other students and young people as well. Talk to me about Breaking Chains. Talk to me about how you help youth get back on the right path and get a second shot.
Absolutely. So Breaking Chains Academy of Development is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that serves at-risk youth in Canyon County and in surrounding areas. And so the way we do that is by providing education services, work skills training, and mentoring activities. We also provide daily meals. We have a hygiene closet full of male and female hygiene products, partnerships with the Nampa Family Justice Center for mental health and victim services, and also a great partnership with the Idaho Diaper Bank for our young parents. So we kind of operate like a school, but we're not. We're more of a teen resource center. Now, the highest demand service we have is our education services. So we offer a GED HSC curriculum. So every kid in our classroom has either dropped out of high school or been suspended or expelled. And so we prepare them for that GED. We have a classroom that sits 20 students at a time. I have 2 tutors in there. And in that one classroom, we operate year-round, open enrollment. And in the year of 2025, we graduated 69 graduates from that one classroom. The demand for that service continues to climb. It is skyrocketing. Right now, I have 10 people on a wait list hoping to get in. So we're hoping that we're able to graduate some of these students in the class to make room and space for these other students to come in. And just partnerships and people out in the community. It's not only about getting them their GED or their HSC. It's about, okay, what are the next steps, right? So great partnerships with CWI, BSU, local businesses, Paul Mitchell, Boise Barber College, and just other great businesses out there in the community.
Okay, man. So, so you help them, one, with education to get one of the biggest and most important determinations possible, which is high school equivalency or GED. Okay, like boom, you get that. That opens a lot of doors for people. Life skills, right? Just keep yourself clean. It's real hard if you're not taking care of yourself in that way. And then obviously mentorship for people that that's one of the biggest things I was very fortunate to have mentors within athletics. But if I wasn't in athletics, man, like I didn't have a lot of people or really any adults that were like, hey man, let me take an interest in you. It was always like, take an interest as a function of like, this kid is part of the team, we should take an interest. But there was no team outside of like wrestling or swimming or water polo, things like that. Right. Talk to me about, well, first off, how did you get into this? Like, what's your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So to really get to know Breaking Chains Academy, I guess you have to know me. So at one point in my life, 19 years old, facing 15 years in prison, standing in a courtroom. And I remember just feeling vulnerable in that courtroom, my freedom just kind of swinging before me. And the judge looked at me and she said, because you have a base of education, work skills, and a strong support system, I do believe you can become a productive member of this community. So she gave me a second opportunity. I ended up only doing a year, got out on 10 years of supervision. And when I think of where I got that base of education, the work skills, and the strong support system, it was Breaking Chains Academy when it was known as OG's Bad. I'm actually a graduate of this program. So I got involved with the program when I was about 14, 15 years old. I went through the work skills training. I got my GED, HSC, was surrounded by some amazing mentors that did so much in my life. Of course, at that age, I didn't really pay attention to what they were doing in my life. And so,
yeah, in retrospect, right?
Right, absolutely.
It's like I look back when I was a 14-year-old monkey, and it's like I call some of the people because I'm like, I'm so sorry, I was terrible,
right?
Because I was a train wreck,
right.
And you know, you look back now as a man and an adult and look at the things that you're trying to, you're like, okay, like I have a lot more compassion for my younger self now as I look back. It's like, dude, you didn't know what you're doing. But at the same time, it's like, damn, man, like people were trying to help. And I was just like, all over the place.
For sure. And so that's why my passion runs so deep for this program, because when I do see these young individuals, it's like looking at that reflection of my younger self, right? Yeah. And it has caused a lot of healing within myself of like, yeah, I was just trying to figure it out just like they are, right? And I used to look at myself in the mirror and just like want to beat myself up, and I'd cringe myself out. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that back then. But I was just learning. I was just growing. And someone once told me that you don't know what's possible until you start experiencing pieces of that possible, right? A possibility. And often I think that happens through mentors, whether they were taking me out into the community, allowing me to experience new and unique things like going out to eat downtown Boise, which back then was a huge deal for me because we didn't leave Canyon County. So we try to do the same too.
Where did you guys go?
I mean, we would go all over. I mean, Old Chicago, back when Old Chicago was in downtown Boise. I remember my mentor would take me there and we would hang out there. With our students now, we take them everywhere. I mean, they've been to Chandler's. Yeah. They've been to everything. Yeah. Mary Beth Chandler's, she donates like a graduation dinner every year to our students. And so we're able to take a select few and go do that. And I mean, the first time I went was last year with them, and I was intimidated. You know, I was in there not knowing which fork to use and all that good stuff. And so,
which fork, right? I still don't know.
Right. And so, no, it was neat, man. And to expose them and to broaden their horizons and to show them that this can be your normal, right? And so I think that's very important, and to provide those unique experiences to them. And
to see what's possible. Like I remember one of the first times I really had that was I was like 17. I was on the swim team, and my swim coach had a BMW, and I was like, dude, this is sick. It wasn't even crazy. Like it was like a 10-year-old Beamer. I was like driving a champagne color Honda Accord that was like my mom's, but like she carpooled to work, so I got to drive the car to school. And dude, I blew out that clutch so bad because it was like 4 horsepower front wheel drive, so I burned out like every stoplight. But he had this Beamer, and it had like these, I swear it was like a pilot thing, right? Like he had like all these buttons he would hit when he started. It was like damn, man, like this is crazy. And he told me, because I didn't know, like even to this day, I don't know how to make money. Like it doesn't make sense. I don't know how to apply for a job. I don't know how to fill out a resume. Like I don't know where I fit in the world. I just happen backwards into like, you know, skill sets that I don't even like. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like this broader, I could have used some mentorship, frankly, but it's this like broad hole in my knowledge base. But experiencing that, then he had us over to his house for dinner, and you know, I was like captain of the swim team at the time, but I just remember looking like wide-eyed. I was like, bro, he's got like a 2,500 square foot house. Look at that. He's got an office with a desk. He's got a desk. And it was that kind of, it wasn't Chandler's, but it was this kind of taste of like, look, man, like you could do this too. Like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but like you could do it. And it was like, that became this target from when I was 17. I'm like, dude, I want to be like that guy.
Absolutely.
Like I want the Beamer. I never got the Beamer. I drive a Honda, or excuse me, a Toyota. But yeah, but like all of that, I got a desk.
Right.
It's made out of butcher block top. But you know, anyway, like you got to get that target. So you're like, look, the world isn't all dark. there's that shiny thing over there. Just walk that direction.
Absolutely. Building resilience.
Yeah.
One thing I think we can't do is confuse with surviving, chaos and trauma with learning to be resilient through it, right? Like, did you figure out how to problem solve that? Did you come out on top on the other end with the tools and the resources you need in order to overcome that, so that later down the line, when you're an adult and you have your own kids, you can put out their fires if you have to. We got to learn how to put out our own fires before we put out anybody else's, right? And so that's huge for us. Can we give them the tools, the resources for them to succeed? But not only that, to create the desire within them to start making different decisions, right? I always tell them, they don't have good examples around them of what good decisions look like most of the time. So they don't even know where to start. And I always tell them, if you don't know how to make good decisions, start with making different decisions. Start with doing that, right? And lean into the supports that you do have. And so sometimes, again, the highest demand service we have is the education services. But sometimes we put that last. What does this kid need? How does this kid show up? Is there an addiction there? Is there homelessness there? Is there food insecurity? What can we do first and to cover those basic needs? And then next thing you know, that diploma comes right after, right? Sometimes the kids come ready to go. Yep, I'm here to get my diploma, my GED, and they do great. But sometimes we have to really sit down and analyze where these kids are at. And I think that's what's great about our program. We get to do that. We get to look at every student that walks into our doors and see what are their needs. Where can we meet them? How can we make ourselves accessible to provide what they need at this moment? So breaking chains on paper is what I told you, but it's what that kid needs that day. I mean, I always say it's everything that my staff is doing that's not in their job description that's really getting the work done with them. Building relationships. Nothing happens without those relationships. They say you can only move at the speed of trust, and I've known that to be true. We meet these kids where they're at. We show them that we care about them, that we're genuine. And next thing you know, these kids are thriving in the classroom and outside of the classroom, which is important, because not only do we want them to thrive in the classroom, we want them to be community members, productive community members who pay taxes, who contribute to the community. And those are our goals.
Man, you're 19, you're looking at the judge, and the judge says to you, you have educational competence, you have work competence, and you have a support group. Talk to me about these three. You said you went through the program when you were 14. I assume that means like the GED, high school equivalency. What was the work that you started getting into that the judge looked at and like, all right, look, you have a skill set. Maybe you're not a rocket scientist, but you got a skill set. I believe you can find gainful employment. What, how did you develop this skill set, and what was it?
Right. So I think, so here's this, I remember standing in that courtroom, looking over at the prosecutor, and she had this huge stack of papers, looking over at the judge, again, this huge stack of papers. And I remember thinking, like, how can these people be so sure of who I am based on what's on that paper? And it took me a long time to realize that I put what was on that paper, criminal history, background and all that stuff. But also what was on that paper was those three things, right? Which at the time I didn't think was a big deal. I was like, yeah, I dropped out of high school, so I need to go get a GED at least. And I got it done in a month. It wasn't a big deal. And working, all I've ever known was work. I saw my parents come over from Mexico and just work their butts off to have every single penny in their pocket. And so I knew I had to work. They set that example. I'd wake up in the morning for school and they were already at work. I'd go to sleep and they weren't even home yet, sometimes 6-7 days a week, just to, keep the lights on, right? And put food on the table and put a roof over our head. And so I just knew work was it. And so I've always been, not the best academically, but I knew I had to get out of the way so that I could work. And so I would always just jump into any type of work that they had a work crew program. I was on the work crew program, and then I was doing that. And so, I mean, I'm assuming she looked at this paper and she was able to see the good and the bad, right? And so at least I had 3 good things on there. And actually, I met the judge that sentenced me years later. She did come over to Breaking Chains Academy and visit, and I was able to show her around and let her know what we do. And as we sat there and had a conversation, she said, I went back on my notes to see what I wrote down on the day that we sentenced you. She said, and I wrote 2 words, leader and intelligent. And it just blew my mind. And she's like, I knew that you could do it, and I was able to do it. And it took many years. I did 7 years of supervision, got off early because of just did probation and supervision perfect, no PVs, no nothing. And so that was nice. And then just recently I put in for a pardon, and they actually had a review hearing this past Tuesday, and I'm hoping to hear if I get a hearing to actually go in person and kind of plead my case. So I'll hear back tomorrow and see if they can do something. And then
hear back tomorrow.
Yeah, to see if I got a hearing scheduled so that they can pardon my felony. And so I'm excited about that. I do believe that that's, a chapter I get to close if it does go through. If not, I'll continue to do what I got to do. But I do want to be the example of, we at times do hit this adversity in life, whether it's the criminal justice system that a lot of times gets a bad rap, right, and a bad name. But I want to show and be the example that you can go through that and come out on the other side. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It's a lot of hard work. But again, going back to did I survive that, or did I find resilience in that and come out on the other side with the tools that I needed to succeed? And so I want to be an example of that to my community, because I do come from that gang affiliation background, and I do come from Canyon County, and I think we need that, right? Again, you don't know what's possible until somebody shows you. I want to be that possible.
Yeah. What do you think the judge saw with you standing there, that she was like looking at the stack of papers that you worked hard to fill out?
Right.
What do you think she saw that she was like, he's smart and he can lead people? Like, what was it?
That's a very good question. I think it's what I see in the kids when they walk in through the doors, right? It's, because I get a full report, right, by the probation officer or by, a caseworker on who, again, what's on paper, who this kid is on paper. But I see this kid walk in and just realize that's what it is. He's a kid, right? And I know I was 19 years old, technically an adult. But I do feel that a lot of these kids are paying the price for something that's not their fault, right? That they inherited these traumas, they inherited some living circumstances or whatnot, and now they're paying the price for it and learning how to try to respond to it, right? And these kids aren't showing up trying to be knuckleheads. It's yes, they're looking for something, but it starts with, what are they running away from? Right? And usually it's some type of harm. And so if we can recognize that, then we know that we're dealing with fragile minds and fragile hearts, and to have compassion when working with these individuals. And you build you have that compassion, you build a relationship, you build the trust, and then you can hold them accountable. So it becomes a combination of trust, compassion, accountability. And then you can kind of start leaning into them, I always have a little grace period. These kids sign up for our services the first week. I'm this nice guy. Then I'm
nice
like,
guy.
Here we go.
Suck
Here
him in.
Yep.
Suck him in.
And then, I start leaning into them, but it's all out of love. And they recognize that, we're always there for their best interest, and it's never out of a hateful place. We never, kick a kid out. We always try to figure out, how do we keep him in? What do we need to give them to stay in our program instead of kicking them out? Again, the demand for our services is at an all-time high. It would be nice just to be like, okay, you're not fitting in, you're out. Okay, let's try the next guy. But That's not our goal. Our goal is to try to figure out what's going on and how can we help? What can we do on our part to keep you in the program and to help you succeed?
When you said a few minutes back, you're like, look, we try to meet the kids where they are. We try to address the underlying problem first. It's kind of like trying to plant a garden and getting mad at the seeds or the young plants. Be like, why aren't you growing, you idiot? Like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, you're trying to grow me in concrete. Like, it's not. What portion of your work is wrapped around getting the environment right? Because you mentioned, you're like, listen, if you get them oriented properly, the GED comes almost instantly. But it's almost like that gets reversed in a lot of programs where they're like trying to ram this GED or they're trying to ram this thing. And it's like, you're not fixing the underlying problem. Like, if this kid hasn't eaten, right? If this kid is living on the street, they don't give a shit about the test, right? Like, if they're getting beat up every day by a family member or someone else, like, they don't care. And maybe they want to care, but you don't fix it. Like, what portion do you think is getting that orientation and that system right that supports the kid, like the everyday? And then you're like, okay, now you're functioning, right? Now do this. And they're like, done. I got a meal. I didn't get beat up. Like, I slept in a bed last night. That was great. And yeah, dude, I'll do your test. No problem. Right. Like, what portion of it do you think that is?
It's the majority for sure, but it's also case by case, right? So we, I have this initial meeting with the kid, and I get to kind of feel them out, see where they're at, and then see what their needs are. And then we have a staff meeting. We sit down and talk about it. Okay, these are the needs, and we start addressing those needs. But it is the majority. It's being really aware that we're working with lives, right? And not to downplay, food insecurity or passing out food boxes, but we're not passing out food boxes. We're working with lives, and fragile ones at that. And realizing that they're showing up hurt or with some type of trauma. It's the majority. But as soon as you walk into our doors, everybody will tell you that the environment is a family environment. Usually the kids show up and they see this tatted up dude with face tattoos. I'm like, oh crap, who's this guy? I drop a couple, F-bombs, and next thing you know, like, oh, this guy's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
dude, you always swear. I actually, I told my SAT students this, because same thing. First week, I'm like, fun. Then you start leaning in, because they come in, they're like, oh, this will be great. It's like, yeah, it'll be great. Get your goddamn homework done.
Right, for sure.
But one of the things that one of my students told me once, it's like, dude, I walked in the first day, and this is like at the end of the program. It's like, I walked in the first day. You were like, how the fuck are you? And he was like, whoa. And it was like, yeah, man, look, I do that intentionally so that I'm not just another person putting on like the happy face. We're going to have a good time, but I'm also going to be real with you through this process, because, in education, you very rarely get, like, you ever play sports?
I played basketball in 6th grade.
There you go. I played CYO basketball. I was terrible at basketball, man. Anyway, but like in sports, it's very common in that environment to have an adult who's going to get real with you, right? They're going to scream and yell. They're going to push you. They're going to get in your face. Totally fine. Mm-hmm. Math class? No, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. And there's this disconnect with like, I'm going to be much more like the soccer coach. I never played soccer either. I'm going to be much more like the soccer coach than I am going to be the math teacher, because we can have that rapport. You can look at me and say, I don't get this. I'm like, try it again. I don't believe you don't get it. I don't even think you're reading the question, right? Like get back after it. And that kind of resilience, it creates, like it changes the way they viewed problems. They like got their dukes up. They're like, all right, man, I'm going to get after this. Right. And it was that kind of relationship where it's like, it's not going to be the same thing. I'm not just going to be another adult coming in just blah, blah, blah.
Because they've had that.
Dude, they've had that.
They've had that. They've had everybody telling them what to do. Right. And so
they've had everybody telling them all their potential. Right. You got so much potential, Johnny. Come on. It's like, stop talking about what he could be. Like start talking about like, put the deodorant on and wash your face.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. And it's neat because I've been doing this work for 13 years. So I got hired on in 2000. Shoot, my math's gonna be wrong here. 2013, and I was 24 years old. I started out as a tutor and mentor, and so like at 24, I was like the cool big brother. No. And then I got older, and it was like, okay, he's the cool uncle, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm the dad. Now my kids are the same ages of the students that are in my classroom. My youngest is 16, my oldest is 19, and so it's fun though, right? Like I find this like, oh yeah, these are my kids' ages, and I get to go to work and share my life with these kids. They get to share their life with me, and I get to go home, and it's like the same dynamic there, right? But providing that environment, going back to that, it's so important. It has to be that relaxed, safe environment. And when I say safe, I'm not talking about kids not getting their feelings hurt. I'm talking about shootings, stabbings. I'm talking about food insecurity. I'm
talking about what safety used to be.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I mean, I've shown up to our facility and a kid's by the back door in a sleeping bag outside. There's been a tent in the back. So we've seen it all. And it's the harsh reality of this work is in the last 13 years I've been doing this work, we've had more than 10 kids pass away to gang violence, drug addiction, and other things, And so there is a harsh reality that comes with it, but that's what comes with this, right? And if we're not there filling in those gaps, then who is? Because what makes us unique is not the services we're providing. There's a lot of organizations providing services that we're providing or similar ones. What makes us unique is who we're providing it to. I want the highest risk kids in my classroom because they need it the most. I'm not here to pat the perfect kid on the back. I'm here to love, embrace, and support the ones who need it the most. It's easy to show up to graduation, but can you show up to the courtroom? Can you do that? Or can you be with them when they fail? Because that's what we are. I love to be with them when they succeed. I love to be with them even more when they fail, because that's the tough part. Right. And when they look around, who was there? When dad's in prison, mom's in rehab, kids sleeping on the couch at grandma's, like who's there? Who's going to be there for them when they fail? And I think back of all the people that were there for me. And that's the difference between me and the homies that I grew up with, the ones that ended up in prison, the ones that ended up dead. I had those people around me who provided that support and who were with me when I failed. And I remember I got locked up. And I was locked up and I said, God, if I get out, the first place I'll go is to church. I'm going to go straight to church. And the clothes I get out in, I'm going to go to church. Well, I ended up going back to the program. That was the first place I stopped. And I remember feeling this guilt of like, dang, I made this promise and I didn't go to church. But little did I know that that was my church. The program was where I found hope. And I remember I walked in and you know, Steve Toronto, the old executive director there was there, and his wife Paula, and ran to me with arms wide open. It was never like, you're a bad kid. It was like, welcome back. What do you need? Here we go. You know, and so that's what we're trying to be, is that same thing. And so that's what this program is about. It's a place where you can fail.
Man, I've thought about this a lot as an adult, and as I consider my life and where I'm going, and even the last several years with this particular endeavor that we're both sharing right now, right? And a lot of people, like I got interviewed recently by The Statesman, and they were asking me. I recorded the whole thing, by the way. It's gonna be. I'm gonna publish the entire video. Yeah, it'll be great. But you know, and again, the conversation went great. But the question that I get asked so frequently is, like, why do you think this is working? What is this? Like, why do people come and talk to you like they do? Right? Like, why is it that people that won't talk to anyone come and talk to you, political or otherwise? Like, you just get people on, and you know, you can go back and forth through a lot of different theories about that, right? And people have theories abound, right? And again, none of my affair. People can think whatever they want, but man, the real answer is that I'm really good at failing over and over and over. And for the first couple years of sitting in this room alone with not knowing what I was doing, not having any idea which way it was going or how I was going to make it work, I kept showing up.
For sure.
And I didn't have anybody cheering me on. I got 3 kids at home. I got a wife. I got a mortgage. It's like, what are you doing? You better be in, like, all in with this. And my capacity to fail is one of those things that I can't express enough to my children, right? Like, I love it when they win, but man, to see them get back up, like, it brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it.
Absolutely.
And for those of us that get the opportunity to have, you know, green lights all the way to work, man, great. Like, that's wonderful. But that's not what happens to most people. Most people's just roadblock after roadblock, and they're trying to get things done, and they're trying to make it through the world. And it's so damn hard. And it's like, yeah. And it's going to be like this.
Absolutely.
You know, you said something earlier. Being resilient is different than having the tools to deal with life, right? And like, you skipped over it, and it's stuck in my head. Like, when you talk about that, we can have people that, you know, like, you got to be able to deal with trauma. You got to be able to take a hit. You got to be able to take a hit. People can only take a hit so long if they don't have the tools to, like, dodge the next punch. Right? Like, how do you help people understand that distinction where it's like, yes, the things that have happened, they are bad. And yes, you're going to have to deal with more bad things, but I'm going to teach you one thing a day to arm you against more of it, so that you don't keep having to swallow this big bucket of like, you're going to get, it's going to be bad for a while, but like, it's going to start, like, how do you express that to young people?
Right. A lot of it is through example, right? And that's the great thing of our staff, is all the lived experience that we have there and professional experience. So it's a combination of both. And so every staff member has some type of lived experience. So when these kids are facing these adverse circumstances or situations, one of my staff members has experienced it before, right? And they're ready and willing to sit down and have just a real ass conversation with these kids, and not sugarcoat anything, and just keep it real. Also, a huge thing, I think, is yes, we need to acknowledge, you know, our traumas and all the adversity that we've faced, but we need to acknowledge it so that we can come up with a solution, instead of just using that as a justification of why we are where we are, right? So, okay, we went through this stuff, or we're going through this stuff. Okay, let's figure out a solution to that, instead of just using that to be like, well, it's because of this. It's because I'm from the hood. It's because my siblings. It's because all I saw is this. I'm like, yeah, that cool, but you know, that's just a piece of you. That's just a piece of it right now. Let's work towards something and make a bigger picture, a bigger masterpiece, right? I think sharing space with these kids does a lot. And again, setting the example. Again, I come from that gang background. You know, I'm talking about bullets flying, gang fights, being locked up, and all that good stuff. And so when these kids, I get to share some of my experiences and my story with these kids. They're like, wow. And one thing I hear, I mean, I have Mondo, Mondo Garcia. He's my meal coordinator. So Mondo shows up, cooks breakfast every morning for the kids. It's usually chorizo, eggs, and tortillas. He cooks lunch as well. And now Mondo also comes from a gang background as myself. Now I'm going to go on a little side thing right now. So the neat dynamic about our program is that Mondo is there. And the reason I say is neat is that me and him come from rival gangs in Canyon County. You know, if it was 15 years ago, me and him are probably fighting against each other in a gang fight. And as a matter of fact, one day when he first got hired on, we were sitting there and we were kind of talking. And I brought up a story about a friend that I used to have that used to hang out with us and would stay with us for a while and kind of jump around from house to house. Well, that friend ended up killing a rival gang member. And when I shared this story with Mondo, I remember his eyes kind of shifted and he looked at me. He got real serious and he said, the person he killed was my cousin. And we kind of sat there in silence. And then Mondo said, well, he was staying with you? And I was like, yeah, he would stay with us. You know, it was a group of friends. And he's like, oh, we were looking for you. We were looking for revenge. And we just kind of sat there in that silence, you know, the heaviness. And then to see where we're at now and how close our lives almost, you know, crashed into each other, it's really crazy to think. And now we're working together, serving a similar purpose under this organization. And so I think that's the power of what's happening in Breaking Chains, not only with our students, but with our staff. And that brings that neat dynamic and example to these kids who are gang affiliated when they show up and they're like, wait a minute, I know who you are. And now you're in the same building, working together, getting along, being friends. And I think that's another unique thing that we do bring that's different from everywhere else.
There's a gal by the name of Shannon, and her last name escapes me. She made the Potato Movie. Okay, so it's this film, and as she called it, it was her love song to Idaho. And it was like this beautiful, beautiful film. And she's an African-American woman from Southern California and, you know, grew up definitely different than what she moved into. And when I was talking with her, she expressed this experience of like coming to Idaho and living here in the way that people live here. And there was like a softening of her heart, you know, and I remember that to a degree as well, not necessarily coming to Idaho, but in meeting my wife and engaging in a better life after college. And there was this like softening and opening up where, you know, pain from the past and the way that you had to exist to keep surviving, you know, kind of started drifting away, right? Did you have that experience in your time after you got out and you're like, okay, look, we're going to do something else? What was that for you?
There's so much there. There's a huge story behind that would probably take up 3 hours.
Dude, tell me your story. I've got nowhere else to be.
All right. So, you know, even after I got out, I kind of had one foot in and one foot out because it was a second chance, right? And I always thought, well, if I can't do it for myself, I at least owe it to everyone around me who got me here, which is not 15 years, right? The letters I got to the judge on my behalf and you know, the pre-sentence investigation lady who wrote a good PSI for me and all that good stuff. And so I knew, I'm like, I know I need to make better choices, but that life and everything I knew still kind of had a hold on me. And I had to reprogram my brain, my values, and put things at top that I really wanted, right? And it was hard. I had a falling out with the guys I used to hang out with. So, you know, the gang members I used to hang out with. So that was a huge thing. And I remember, okay, I need to disappear. And so I did. And if I had I live in Nampa, and if I had a grocery shop, I was grocery shopping in Meridian. If I pulled up to a gas station, I saw a certain type of car at the gas station, I went to the next one. Just stayed out of sight. To really get away from everything and getting.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why? I have heard this dynamic before. What is it that when someone like you is like, hey, look, I want out, then that your counterparts are like, we're not happy about that.
Right.
Right. It's like, you know, I've experienced things similar to that, but I've never understood, like, what were people upset about?
Right. It's a power complex, honestly. They want to have some kind of hold or control over you. And I'm not talking about every single one. Don't get me wrong. I had some good homies.
Yeah.
I actually got a phone call when I decided to step away, and it was one of my big homies, and he said, "Hey, just heads up. They're saying this. Please be safe. You know, I'm kind of going against everything I'm supposed to be doing, but I care about you and I want you to be safe." And to me, that meant a lot, because I'm like, here's this older guy who I looked up to as a mentor, who was a mentor, even though it was in that, you know, in that capacity, who genuinely cared about me. And I was like, wow, if he believes in me and if he cares about me, then, you know, I think this is the right decision. But I do think it's some kind of control, because these people, especially the older guys who are still in this mix, have invested so much of their life in this, that without that, who are they? If they did 5 years in prison for this cause, without that, why did they do 5 years in prison? If they've risked their life for this cause, without that, then who are they? It's so much of their identity, right? And so I think there is this kind of power trip that they try to hold, but it's nonsense. And I know I'm going to get heat for saying that, but you know, I'm so fed up with it. And it's because I'm 37 years old now, and I see guys my age still somehow grooming these younger guys and inviting them, you know, for lack of better words, to this lifestyle that's so self-destructive and dangerous. And once you mess with the kids, that's where I draw the line. I would never in my life would want to put my kids in the situations I was in at their age, right? And when I say kids, I'm not talking about my kids at home. I'm talking about the kids in the classroom. So when I see these older guys who are still into that, it drives me crazy. And I won't put up with it.
I interrupted you. Back to the softening of your heart.
Yeah. 24, I was working at a warehouse out in Melba. Packaging steer manure and chicken manure for fertilizer. Yeah, for fertilizer. Getting paid minimum wage. And the reason I was there was because when I got out, my probation officer gave me, it was a double-sided paper with a bunch of felon-friendly employers. And I was like, all right, well, this is it. This is my life. This piece of paper, right? My future, my career. This is going to be it for the rest of my life. And so I went down the line. I got employed. And then I get a call from Steve Toronto, who was the executive director of OG's Bad, which is now Breaking Chains. And he's like, hey, I'd love to chat with you. Do you have some time to come by? I said, okay. I went to his office, and he's like, hey, I have a mentor/tutor position opening up, and I think you'd be perfect. And I was like, shoot. I was like, I'm a straight F student in high school. I dropped out, got my GED. Yeah, I got it in a month, but academically, I'm just not there. He said, that's the last thing I'm worried about. I really think these kids need you. And I said, okay, well, let me think about it. And he said, how much are they paying you? I said, minimum wage. He said, no, not anymore. I'm going to pay you $15 an hour. So this is back in 2013. So I was like, $15 an hour. What the, it changed my world, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I said, okay. He's like, when can you start? I said, right now. He's like, no, put in your 2 weeks. Do it the right way. And then it comes to me. I was like, all right. So I put in my 2 weeks. And I remember.
How were those 2 weeks? Every day you're going into work knowing you're about to make $15 an hour, no more manure, no more packing chicken crap into a box.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh man, I didn't get much done those 2 weeks.
Oh my God. It's like you had senioritis. Yeah, I'm graduating.
So yeah. And so I remember walking in there my first day and getting down and helping with that. These kids with their GED, and it's a lot of the little guys that I already knew from the the neighborhood and all that stuff, and so it was an instant connection there. But like back then, class was an hour, and we'd sit there for 55 minutes, just chaos. These kids are bouncing off the walls, nothing's getting done. But I swear, for 5 minutes, it'd just be this silence, and I would look around, and I see these kids just in their books, just reading, and everything's quiet, and I was like, wow, it blew my mind. I was like, this is learning. Like learning is happening right now. And something happened there. A switch happened there where I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be right here. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I fell in love with teaching. And and the kids are like, you teach it so well. And it's because I'm learning it with you. I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm sitting there getting wrong
You're
answers.
like, well, I'm kind of a pro. Yeah.
No. And so I would tell them, like, I might not know the right answer, but we'll figure it out together. And I was really good at doing that. We'd sit there, we'd read things and go over the material and we get things wrong. Again, get things wrong together. And I'm not this like guy with a degree or anything. I'm just like you, right? I'm just like these kids that I'm helping and that doing the work that I'm doing, sharing my time and space with these kids. And again, them allowing me to be there and share this time and space with them, share our lives. There was something there where I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And in another way, it was like my biggest clap back to the people I used to hang out with, right? I was like, you guys are doing this, sending these kids in that direction. Now watch this, right? You guys are grooming these kids or pushing these kids into this direction, but watch this. Watch what we can do. And so I also fell in love with that. And then just going out into the community, meeting people. And again, I felt like I not only owed it to myself and to my potential, but to everyone who got me there. To the judge, the prosecutor, to Steve Toronto, who gave me the opportunity, to all those mentors I had when I was younger, to all those people in my life who said something or did something, gave me a ride, or owed it to them as well. And I definitely felt a shift, and that's why I'm here.
That's beautiful, man. My experience with that came from a pillow fight I had with my now wife. This is like at the end of college, we got like in a pillow fight. I was like, what the hell are we doing? And I was like, well, I guess I don't have to take myself so seriously. It's right. Yeah, man, who cares? Dude, we, I had that experience for me was definitely one of like meeting a partner that was like, yeah, we both know how to work hard. We both know how to be serious, but like we can both, like, we don't have to be so hard all the time. Right. And, our experience was very different than yours, obviously. But we had both hardened ourselves up to deal with, college in general. And we were both D1 athletes. She was captain of the water polo team. Like, she was a monster. And to shed away all that stuff and come back to reality where it's like, you don't have to be so just like, man, at the end of college, I was like, we were animals. Like, we were bred to be absolute animals. And like kill or be killed, die. Like, I couldn't even play Monopoly with my grandma. I remember going to Easter once. This is really embarrassing. But like, I couldn't help myself. It was like, we were just messing around on Easter, right? And I was like, let's play Monopoly. And they're like, okay. And I was like 23. And it was like, I bit down. It was like, like, knocked my grandma out immediately. And she was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I couldn't help it. And it's like, calm down, man. Like, we can be people again. We don't have to be this like ferocious killer be killed all day long. And again, metaphorically speaking, but I do remember that where it's like, okay, like, it's going to be okay. Like, you can move on in the world without, being so savage in a way.
And it's tough, especially with the target population we work with and the kids in our classroom, because we can give them that for the amount of hours they're with us, but sometimes they go right back to the environment where it's total chaos and where they're not safe or not comfortable, And so it's tough to try to balance that.
When you guys do, your program doesn't include live-ins, right?
No, that's the big dream, big vision. I know. I want this big, huge building with showers, laundry, and maybe a couple rooms, because the need is there. Like I said, when you show up to work and there's a kid in a sleeping bag out back or in a tent, the need's definitely there. I wish we could do that. But we do a lot of after hours type stuff. We try to do things on the weekends as well. And we do operate year round, but I don't like taking too much breaks because, idle time for these kids isn't necessarily productive time. And so it scares me. A good example of that just pops into my head is one of my students, Jose, and Jose was gang affiliated. He was 16 when he was in our program. And I got a call on a Sunday that a 16-year-old had been shot in Nampa. And so, as I always do, when I hear news like this or see it on social media, I start kind of doing this mental roll call of all my students, 16, male, and I'm going down all my students. And sure enough, I find out it was Jose, one of our students. And he got shot 3 times. Luckily, the paramedics arrived on scene on time and were able to save his life. And it was 11 days later, this dude walks right back into our building with a little walker, all bandaged up. He had 2 of the bullets still inside of him. He was showing them off. It was nasty. And I remember looking at him and he's limping over, grabbing his stuff. And I'm like, hey, dude, like, go home, rest, and just come back when you're ready to roll. And he's like, I need to get my GED. He's like, I want to go to barber college. And I was like, all right, cool. So he got right back to work. A month after that, he got his GED. And then I get scared because I'm like, hey, okay, now he has all this idle time. And he just got shot, and I remember thinking, okay, he wants to be a barber. And so I get a hold of one of my board members. We start making calls, and Boise Barber College sets up a call with Jose, and they set up a Zoom call. He has no idea what's going on, and they get a hold of him. They're like, hey, we heard you want to be a barber. And he's like, yeah. And they're like, hey, we got a full ride scholarship. Let us know when you're ready to start. So they gave him a full ride scholarship. He was 16 years old, started Boise Barber College, had some hiccups, was able to thug it out and graduated, and became a owner of a barbershop at 19 years old called them Nampa Boys. It's located in Nampa. And now he employs people older than him. And now he's a business owner, right? And that happened through community, through support. And it's just a small story and a testament to the greatness that these kids have inside, right? If you were to see Jose, you'd probably be like, okay, yeah, he's probably still, gang affiliated, but you know what he is even more? A business owner, paying taxes, contributing to the community, hiring people, right? And going back to the paying taxes, it costs $240 a day to lock a kid up for a day. To go through our education services, it costs $255 to pay for all the education costs for one student. And studies show that by achieving a GED diploma, the chances of them being incarcerated drop by 40 to 60%. I mean, so we can do some easy math there, right? And figure out what's more beneficial.
And that 200, the cost of your tuition, you're saying it's 250 one time.
Yes, for education services. So that covers all their practice exams, official exams, the GED transcript, the HSC diploma, and even the cap and gown for graduation. Covers everything. And so, yeah,
man, the number of times I've talked about programs to decrease recidivism, and other things like this. Mm-hmm. It's almost like people don't understand you're paying one way or another.
Right.
Like you are gonna pay. And what we can do is we can strip away all the things that might be supportive mechanisms because, hey, it's not fair. This kid didn't get it. Why are we giving it to this kid? Okay, well, maybe circumstances are different. No, I don't care. Okay, fine. Like, that's fine. But our country is one that philosophically says, if we lock you up, you will get medical care. Right. If we lock you up, you will get dental. Mm-hmm. If we lock you up, you will get 3 meals a day. You're going to get this. Mm-hmm. Now, people can be mad because, like, there's long periods of time where I didn't get 3 meals a day. And I'd be like, well, how come I didn't get through it? Yep. Right. Yeah. And that's fine. And you can have that perspective 100%. But if at the end of the day, what you actually want is to not have more of your earned income going to somebody 3 meals a day, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money to help them stand on their own 2 feet and start contributing to taxes themselves. Like that's the real solution. Have fewer people that fall between the cracks, have fewer people that end up in a system that we fund, have fewer of those people that need those services. Mm-hmm. And it's going to cost a little bit over here. Right. But it's like people only look at the $250 for the cap and gown. Mm-hmm. They're like, I had to buy my own cap and gown. Let him get his. Right. Okay, but then you're back to the $250 a day incarceration fee.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at the end of the day, these nonprofits, right, are filling in gaps.
Yeah.
Where there needs to be something to fill in. And so if that's the case, then, we need to continue to invest in these nonprofits to do the work. I mean, going back to 2025 and our 69 graduates, every single one of them was either expelled or a dropout. So if we're not there, then where are they? Right. And so it's very important. And there's amazing nonprofits in the community that do a lot of the work. But it does take investment on our side, whether it's $255 or an hour of my day. What can I do? How can I show up for my community? As a community, it's up to us to take care of each other. So let's step up and do it.
Yeah, man. With all this, you've been the executive director for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And you said 66 kids last year?
69 graduates.
69 graduates. Yeah. so let's say between 60 and 70. So in the time that you've been executive director, you guys have graduated over 400 people.
Yeah,
roughly.
about.
What else are those people doing?
Yeah. So another great stat that we have is, if I have this correct, I believe it's 87% of those graduates immediately get employment or pursue higher ed. So we also help them in those avenues, whether it's employment or through our partnerships with CWI and BSU, getting them enrolled there, and looking at neat thing is all their trade school and all the trade stuff that they have.
President Gordon Jones, I've had him on the show before, and okay, so if you get your GED or high school equivalent, do you qualify for the launch program?
Yes, absolutely.
Dude.
CWI's advisors are so great at coming over every other week, meeting with our graduates, getting them signed up for launch and all that good stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
This is the thing. Okay, first off, if I knew about the CWI offerings, I would not have a podcast, because I would have moved here and I would have started aviation mechanics and maintenance immediately. I would do it for 2 years. I'd be making over $100,000 and I'd be working at like Gowan Fields on jet engines and stuff. I'm like, hell yeah, man. Like, we would not be sitting here. Like, you have so many opportunities. There's one that I went up to the Stibnite mine, and the company that runs it, Perpetua, that's their hard hat, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Shout out Perpetua. They took me up, gave me a tour. I'm like, I want to see what an open pit mine looks like. Like, I want to see the tailings pile. Like, I want to see all this stuff. And they're like, man, right now, you could get your mining tech degree in under 2 years. You use the launch program, and then we fill in, because Perpetua has their own scholarship that they fill in the last bit, I believe. So you essentially come out debt free. I'm like 99% sure that's accurate. Mining tech, you're going to make between 60 and 80 starting. You have overtime, benefits, retirement, the whole thing. And it's like, it's right there, and you're working in these like the most gorgeous terrain I've ever seen. You ever been up to those? Dude, it is wild. Like, you guys should take tours up there. Just. And I went up there, I was like, if I was a kid with nothing else going on, why wouldn't I do this? And the answer is because you don't know it's there.
Right.
You just don't know. And that's like the story of CWI and College of Eastern Idaho. I have President Lori Barber coming on next week, talk about those opportunities. The ISU, they have a nuclear tech program. 2 years.
Wow.
You can go to Idaho State University in Pocatello, and in 2 years, you're working on nuclear reactors. Like, you have all of these opportunities. And if you're not into the nuclear reactor stuff, I won't fault you there. But but again, to your point, it's like, we have these opportunities where if a 16-year-old with no other prospects just gets a little guidance, by 18, they could be gainfully employed and working and making a full living. I mean, it's just the opportunity's there, man.
100%. And sometimes, you do have to kind of hold their hand through those steps, right? And some people don't like doing that, but you do that, and then you give them a little push, and then you see these kids thriving and succeeding, and so my team does a really good job at doing that, taking kids to the first day of school, college, walking, seeing where their classes are at, and again, a lot of these kids don't have their parents to do that. The majority of our kids are single parent homes, low income, foster care kids, and so they don't have that adult or that person to do that with. And so our team is so great at stepping up and being able to provide that.
Do you guys collaborate at all with, I think it's Teens to Trades or Trades to Teens? They like help supply toolkits and whatnot for people going. Right.
If I remember correctly, I think my development coordinator has a meeting or has met with.
Come on now. Because one of the I'm pretty handy, but it took me years to accumulate, essentially shops with all the tools, and they're not cheap. And you can start off with, I didn't start off with really nice stuff, but you start off and it's like, you take care of that tool, you have that tool, and that tool takes care of you. Right. And then you just keep accumulating these things, but it's the barrier entry. If they're like, all right, look, you can come to this school for free, you're going to need $400 worth of tools. You're like, well, there goes that, man. Right. Like, ain't no way I'm getting $400 worth of tools. And if you just had the tools, then it's like learning to read. It's like learning to read and then reading to learn. It's like, I'm good with the drill now, baby. What can I do with this drill? Right. Like, here we go.
For sure.
Yeah. What a trip. Can I ask you something kind of personal?
Absolutely.
You're 24 when you go back to Breaking Chains and they offer you the job. You're working in Melba for minimum wage, scooping crap. How how were you surviving off of a minimum wage job? Like, I don't care if you worked 2,000 or 3,000 hours a year, right? Like, you're making between, what, 14 and 20,000 at most,
Right.
20,000 at most if you work 60 hours a week.
Right.
Like, how were you making it happen?
Right. So did a year, got out with absolutely nothing. And so staying with mom and dad. If I didn't have them, don't know if I would be here. Right. So I did stay with them up till 24. And that's, they bought a new home. I was able to rent out their house, and then they sold that. And then I was able to move in. Me and my brother ended up renting a house. And so that's another story. He's also a felon. So we had to find a private, owner to
rent you guys.
Yeah. We had the same probation officer at one point. So she would just show up and check up on that. Yeah. It's
a twofer.
Yeah. There you go. And so yeah, that, and then, but you're right. Like, if it wasn't for me and that's the difference between me and a lot of the students in my classroom, right? Some kids don't have that to rely on. So if you are making minimum wage, these kids who just got their GED or whatnot, like, and if they don't have that to lean on, then what, right? Like, then where do they go or what do they do? And so, yeah, I was lucky enough to have that in my life, and I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that support. My thing was that, again, going back to my parents were just working nonstop. And so I was just out and about. My parents are from Mexico. I came here first generation. And so trying to live up to their expectations, I guess, from Mexico, but trying to fit in here, it was just a clash. And so what I see in the classroom till this day is that there's like this misunderstanding between the kids and the parents. And then the other thing I see is like, okay, now my kids, right, that are born here, once these, second, third generation, it's, and I hate to say it, but it's the guys I grew up with, that haven't been able to shake some of those old habits, haven't been able to break some of those old cycles and have passed it down to their kids. I've had, friends' kids in my classroom, which is bittersweet because I'm like, great, I get to work with you, but then damn, your parents didn't figure it out. And
dude,
so
it's hard.
It is. And I see, and then other things, you see the same last names, you see the siblings, it's tough, but it's just the reality, right, of what's happening in the community. I think the kids in my classroom reflect what's happening in the community.
Yeah, my dad was, my grandfather and grandmother came over from Mexico, and my dad was born in Arizona, just broke, like just no money in Arizona back in the 50s, right? And like all kinds of racism, okay. They moved to Southern California, and my grandfather's like killing himself to educate himself. Came over, I think he had his like high school diploma from Mexico or something, but he went to school for like 8 years at night to get a degree, right? So he's working real hard, but has 6 kids, and he's married. The family ends up, imploding. It's hard, really hard. And to see what they went through, and not all of them, like my dad and my uncle ended up joining the Army, and they both flew helicopters in Vietnam. And that's how they made it happen for themselves. It was this extremely difficult, they almost lost their lives, right? And it was this extremely difficult process of essentially going to give that portion, and then that allowed them to get the GI Bill to invest in their future. But outside of that, like, they didn't have help, like they didn't have support. So they had to use this mechanism and trade the safety that, you and I as American citizens enjoy just being here, reaping the benefits of our services. They had to be those people providing that security.
Absolutely.
And I grew up, however I grew up, and, my kids now, the 4th generation, they owe so much to my dad and my grandfather for the hell they went through and what they did to get the opportunities that they have now. Because my kids will never, knock on wood, they will never understand or be hungry like they were hungry. They will never, experience the things they did. But like, that's what it takes. Like, it takes a few. I spoke to my dad about this a couple years ago. We had moved here, and I was talking to him about, my boys and raising the kids. I have 3 boys, and I can't remember exactly the context of the conversation, but it was one really of, I would have liked to give you what you're giving your boys. It just takes, like, we needed one more generation to to cook.
Absolutely.
Right. And to understand that, it's like, I bet he would have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe my dad would have liked to give me what my three boys have. Like, I have a wrestling loft. Like, I got a barn and I built a loft in it and I got wrestling mats. Like, I'm big into jujitsu and wrestling. And it's like, we go out there and turn on the pellet stove and like wrestle around. It's like, this is wild. Like, this is an unbelievable thing. A friend of mine had this ATV, this 4-wheeler that his kids didn't want, and he sold a used ATV. I was like, sure, dude, I'll buy it. Like, and they'll be like, we have a track. Like, on it. It's like this is unimaginable, you know. And it just takes time, and it takes people that have their eyes set on something. Right, like my grandfather did, and then like 3 or 4 generations later, it was like, done. We got it.
Absolutely, I agree. My parents always tell me, you know, we came to this beautiful country to give you opportunity, and they did. Look at the opportunity I got.
But you're dressed a lot nicer than I am. I'll tell you that much.
And then I see my daughter, and I'm like, look where she's at, you know. And they laid the foundation over here for us, right? To me, something unimaginable was as little as being able to drop off my daughter every morning at school. I remember being in elementary and seeing these kids getting dropped off and picked up, or the parents were bringing cupcakes, you know, when it was their birthday, and I'd be like, who are these people and what do they do?
That's crazy.
That's how I would. That was my gauge whether somebody was successful in life. I'm like, you don't have to be at work. You don't have to work 6 days a week. You can leave your work and come and drop off cupcakes. You can drop your kid off at school. You can pick them up. I remember I was so like, that's rich. Those people are rich. And I get to do that now. I get to drop my daughter off. I get to pick her up. I go to cheer competition. I get to have her in cheer and pay for it. And so I always say it's not about being a millionaire. It's about feeling like one. And I feel like a millionaire because I get to go to parent teacher conferences. I get to drop off those cupcakes. And my parents have allowed me to do that through their hard work, right? And through their sweat and through their tears. And I can only imagine what my daughters are going to be able to do. And so
you got 2 girls?
I got 2. My oldest is 19. She's over at BSU, and my youngest.
What's she studying?
So she's kind of up in the air. She's looking
general ed. So
she was looking about getting into nursing. She did make the dean's list last semester, so we were super proud of her. And then my youngest, she'll be 16 here in a couple of weeks, and she's over at Ridgeview out in Nampa in the Valley View School District. And so I'm super proud of them. Everything I did, all the trouble I got into, I swear, I was like, it's going to come back somehow with my kids, right? I'm like, no, they're awesome. They're amazing. Yeah. So
dude, I have a similar anxiety. It's like, I remember, during my middle school years, you know, things weren't going well. And I remember I can't remember if I made it by 8th grade or it was like into my freshman year, but like I broke a 3.0 GPA. And I got like, I don't know, it was like a sticker on my student body card. It was like 3.0. Like I actually, amazingly, my grades progressed all the way up through college. So I wasn't like the 4.0 kid in college or in high school and then like a 3.0 in college. It was like, nope, we just kept going up, like right. Up. And anyway, I think about that frequently because my oldest son, dude, he just does so well, and he's, you know, crushes in all his classes. He's in National Junior Honor Society, like all my boys. And it's like, there's a pang of, there's like a pang of loss that I experience occasionally, and I shirk it off real fast. But there's a thought of like, God, it would have been like, what must that be like for him? Right. It would be great to be in 8th grade and not be struggling to get a 3.0. Right. It also would have been great to be in 8th grade and not be eating the crust off of other people's pizza for lunch. Right. Like that would have been great. Mm-hmm. And, you know, again, he doesn't have to experience that, which is great. But again, it's just one of those things where you see, it's like, I'm just so proud of him, mm-hmm. and I'm so happy. And I try to give myself grace too, because I get down on myself. It's like, why the hell weren't you that? It's like, right. Well, you know, man, if you saw a kid like you right now, you wouldn't be like, what the hell's wrong with you, kid? Right. Why aren't you doing better? It's like, damn, man, like all that kid's had to eat for lunch the last whole week is like other people's tater tots that they didn't want to finish. For sure. Right? Like, okay, that's something to consider, right? Like maybe help that kid out, which is, by the way, what people did for me, right? Which is why I eventually made it here, you know, but you just need that thing.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that I've noticed throughout the years and growing up is that I used to hold some resentment towards my parents because they were working so damn much that I didn't get that connection. You know, the attention that that other kids were getting,
Yeah.
right? And so I did hold this resentment. And it was that, again, going back to, am I using my traumas and chaos as a justification, or how am I using it? And I used to use it as like, yeah, well, it's because they weren't there. And look what I got into, and look where I'm at because of that. But growing older and realizing that they were doing what they could with what they had at the moment, and then also seeing my daughters grow up and finding healing through them, right? Of like, oh shit, I'm 37. I'm still trying to figure this out. Hey, they were 37, still trying to figure it out, you know? And so then there comes that under with less than I have. Like, how the hell did they do that? And so finding healing, and I showing up to my daughter's cheer competition, she spots me in the crowd and seeing her smile, and I'm like, I used to want that so bad, you know, so bad. And okay, I didn't get it, but look who gets it. You know, it's my daughters. And so finding healing through that. And I think that's also what's kind of happening in the classroom, right? Like showing up for those kids and just how people showed up for me. And again, just healing and growing from that.
God bless him, man. Man, I wasn't prepared for this conversation today. Listen, man, I know it's a working day for you. We don't have to solve all the world's problem in one conversation. I'd love to keep it going. I'd love to talk to other people in your organization, Absolutely. Talk to other graduates if they'd be game. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you'd like to hit here at the end?
Not necessarily. Again, just going back to supporting the local nonprofits that are doing some of the heavy lifting in the community. Again, as I mentioned, we are a community, and it is our responsibility to take care of each other. And so let's do that. Let's step up, and that looks different. And it can be in many ways, not necessarily sending a check, stopping by, seeing how you can help, volunteers, donations. It goes a long way. And going back to my program, again, what makes us unique is not only what we're doing, but it's who we're doing it with. And we'll continue doing the work and building a strong community and future leaders of this community.
God bless him, man. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for what you do, brother.
Appreciate you, brother.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.